On my last channel, this was a very popular video, and I've been getting a whole lot of requests to put it back up. And so, back by popular demand, I give you Fear and Bicycles. I want to talk about my early years when I would take off from San Diego. I started taking a lot of trips, and I used to live in what I like to call the triangle of safety, which is where I live, where I work, and where I socialize. It would seem the longer I stayed in this triangle, the harder it was to leave it. But I loved taking these trips. As you can see, this was my real calling, was being out on the road here. I knew when I got out here that this was the place I belonged to be. It was where my spirit came alive. And so I began to take a lot of trips just over the mountains, maybe to the desert. And I would make plans. I'm going to leave next week or whenever. And everything was cool. Then as the time grew closer, this little demon would begin to talk to me, and he would talk to me in my own voice. He sounded like the voice of reason, like the voice of maturity. And he would talk to me in my own head, and he'd start saying things like, maybe you shouldn't go. Maybe you don't have enough money. You know, it isn't the responsible thing to do. That's one of his favorites. Like going out to enjoy the life God gave me isn't one of the most responsible fucking things I can do with it. You know, your bike might break down. Here's one of his favorite ones. You know, you're not going to have any fun anyway, like he's already been there and done that. This on and on, this little voice would begin to chatter in my head. It was really the voice of fear, but it would talk to me like it was the voice of reason. You see, and this little bastard slowed me down a few times. He even stopped me once or twice, and this was not acceptable. So what I began to do was I would make the date that I'm leaving. And as the time got close, he would begin to talk. And I would tell him, shut up, please, but talk if you must. Either way, the decision was made a week ago or 2 weeks ago or whatever, and it is no longer yours and mine to debate. Come this date, we're leaving. See, but right up at the time of departure, he would show his true colors and he would turn to fucking terror. And sometimes I would leave, man, with my knees tight against the gas tank, freaking out. And all I'm doing is going over the mountains to Arizona, for Christ's sake. I mean, it ain't no big deal, man. But about 3 hours out, I'd begin to relax some. 3 days later, I'm looking around going, this is great. Why don't I do this more often? You see, how many times have your friends said they were going to go with you and backed out at the last minute? Who do you think beat them? This little demon has stopped so many people from doing the things that they want over the eons of human history. To deny this demon, to deny his existence in the name of machoism or how cool I am, is to forfeit the battle immediately. Because in the battle with him, there's no middle ground. One of us is going to win, the other one's going to lose. Because he's fear. I read somewhere that the unknown is the cause of all fear. And I believe that. That has been my experience. So he wants me to stay with what I'm doing, even if it's no longer working and it's time to move forward. He doesn't want me going into to whatever's coming next. He'll kill me with this crap. And so, after a while, of course, as I began to leave my comfort zone and take more trips, the unknown becomes the known, and it is no longer scary. So whenever I have to go do something new, I cross the border with my money tucked in my shoe. I'm going to be camping along the side of the road in Alaska where there's bears, or I'm going to make a camp in a place just like this one where I don't know if I'm going to be okay here or not. I have to first feel the fear and do it anyway. There's no other way to beat this guy. I had a guy from a magazine interview me once. And I was going across the border. And he came to my place, he brought me a cigar, and he set a tape recorder on the table. And he talked to me about it. And he asked me how I was feeling. And I said, oh, I'm terrified. And he said, really? Like, what are you, a sissy? What's there to be afraid of? I swear to God, everybody who tells me they don't have that kind of fear, it's almost always somebody who hasn't stepped out of their comfort zone in so long that they haven't experienced that. They don't remember what it's like. Now, that interviewer became my friend, and later on, he was going on a trip to Colorado, and he was going to go with some friends, and he didn't want to ride his bike because it had like 20,000 miles on it, so he rented a new one, and his friends backed out, and so he didn't go. So to deny this demon is to simply, in most of our cases, or at least for me, is to kid myself. He exists, he's an opponent, he's a serious opponent, and I'm going to have a battle with him. And I know his bullshit, and I know what to do, so it makes it much harder for him. Stuff like this, I'm so used to it now, it's not scary anymore. I pulled in here and thought, well, it was raining like crazy when I got here. And I thought, well, I want to stay the night here. And I'm right next to the road. And I thought, well, we'll just see what happens. I've done this before. I slept fine. I slept good. This has been my personal experience. And so I hope that this little video may help anybody else who has this problem. Today I'd like to relate a story about an event that happened to me years ago, back when I was in my 30s, I do believe. And it was one of my early trips into Baja, Mexico, which is a 1,050-mile peninsula, I think, that shoots off the bottom below San Diego out into the ocean all by its lonesome out there, right? And I think I might have even still lived in San Diego at the time. I don't remember, but I'd been in Baja for, I don't know, a month or something. I was probably about 20 minutes from Cabo San Lucas, which is the bottom of Baja. And there's a road going, two-lane road going in front of me. There's an ocean on the right. There's a desert on the left. And there's hardly any traffic today. And as I'm cruising down this nice piece of blacktop, I see these two bicyclists up ahead along the road. Now, I'd seen these two characters in a restaurant sometime before, and they looked interesting. And so I decided that I would pull over and try to spark up a conversation with them. They pull up on their bicycles and they get off and they immediately start ribbing each other, man. And they're just cracking me up the way they're giving each other shit. This couple had been married for over 40 years. After a couple minutes, I asked them about their trip. Well, they'd started in Tijuana, so they're 1,000 miles in. And he told me about the trip, and it had been eventful. And when he got done, I said, you know, I just got to ask. I says, how old are you guys? And she says to me, well, I'm 61, and Helmuth here, he's 66. I said, really? And you are both getting ready to complete a 1,000-mile ride through Mexico, a place where a lot of my friends are afraid to even set foot over the border or drive over it. I says, how's that work? He said to me, well, we tried to get old the normal way. We sat in padded rocking chairs, played checkers with our friends, and tried to get used to watching TV. Finally, I said to my friends, if you're going to act as if you're already dead, then you probably soon will be. As for me and mine, we're going to go on living. He told me the active life is the good life. He'd run 9 triathlons, she'd been in 8, they'd been all over the world, they'd done all these things with their lives. So I says to him, well, but how come when so many people, you know, up your age are doing so little anymore, you guys are still doing so much stuff like this? And he says to me, well, he says, if I had to answer that, my guess would be that I think it comes from defying one's fears. He said it's a natural progression as a person gets older that they begin to become afraid that the things that didn't get them before are going to get them now. A lot of my friends begin to eliminate things from their life. They tell me that they're growing wiser. He says, but not one has ever argued when I said to them, well, since you were able to live more fully when you were younger by taking more chances, maybe you're just growing scareder. So you see, people will eliminate things and their lives will become very small. And maybe this is a good life for these guys, I don't know. He said, but for most people, the human spirit has a need to grow and expand. But how can a plant grow if the pot that holds its roots is too bound? What I think is that rather than giving into your fears of doing the things that you always wanted to do as you get older, you should become more capable of making them happen. That, I believe, is the true definition of the term growing wiser. And his wife says to him, oh, Helmuth, shut up. You're boring the poor boy. And I'm like, no, I'm listening to him. So I needled him for, more of his wisdom. But he just went back to ribbing his wife, cracking me up. I swear my gut hurt the way they were talking to each other. When I finally took off, I stopped up ahead and I took out my tape recorder I used to have. And I just wanted to record this conversation, even though I knew I would never forget it. I have a friend who had a very large motorcycle channel, and they recently just took the whole thing down. Now, not even the one video they were pissed off about. They could have just took that. They took his whole channel and wiped it out. And, which is exactly what they did to me last year. No warnings, no nothing. They just took it down. And the reason, so us creators, as they call us, guys who make the vids, we are walking on fucking eggshells with these people because we don't know what we're going to say or do in their rules, they have rules, and then they say, but these are not all of them. In other words, they can make shit up. And so we're walking around on eggshells, and the reason for that is because, at least in my case, is people won't go to other channels. I'm also up on other channels that are free speech. They don't fuck with me at all. And I'm going to show you the one below, and if you go over there, there's actually an app for this thing in the App Store. If you see me disappear off of here again, I don't know that I'm going to try playing ball with these guys again, but I'll always be up over there. In fact, everything I ever had is still up over there. And there's an app, and you can subscribe, and it's also a good place to go check anything. You see something on the mainstream news, you're like, I don't know about that. Go over to there's other ones too. I leave links to them over there. I can't leave you guys a link here because I don't know if I'll get spanked or stabbed or murdered or what by this fucking people who run this thing. So I want you to know that. I hope you subscribe to me over there as well. You can say anything you want there, and I'm going to leave you a few links. Of course, a link to my book, which is sold very well. I hope some of you guys will go and press the link and read the reviews. They're really good. And of course, a link to some of my donate stuff for those of you who want to use it and can afford to use it. That's how I'm buying my gas these days, so I want to thank you guys right now. And for all those who don't sweat it. My material's always going to be free. I don't know if you guys notice, but I shut the commercials off, the mid-roll commercials. There's never any in between on my videos. I think there's too much of just going for the money, going for the money, going for the money in this country. I want you guys to be able to watch the whole thing without those kind of interruptions. I hate those, and so I turn them off. And my point being is that my material is always going to be free. I'm not going to do Patreons. I'm not going to put commercials on it. I get requests for that emailed to me all the time. Hey, make a commercial in there. We'll pay you for it. And I just delete them. So I just think that there's too much greed, and my needs are met, so I'm happy. And with that, you guys, I'll see you all on the next video.